All right. Well, he is certainly one of the big names that people are jonesing to see after a couple of dropped fights this year already. But Nate Reinhardt talking to us today ahead of his fight.
Doing good, man. No, thank you for taking the time having me on. Super cool, man.
Of
Super cool.
course, more than happy to. I think the first thing that I want to kick off with is kind of the narrative of 2023. In March, you had a fight, dropped off the day of weigh-ins, which was super unfortunate. Luckily, able to get you back on that April show. Same thing happens again here. You were on the September card against George Frady. Now you got to wait an extra month and head into this one. How has this year been with kind of these fights dropping off left and right whenever you think you have the opportunity to make the walk initially?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. It's awful. It is awful. And I think it's even worse because me and Jackson, I feel like me, Jackson, Mina, and Billy on we're just not justified on paper enough with like small records. And so just to have to play the waiting game to be able to show um our full potentials as fighters is it's gut wrenching, man. It's gut wrenching. So I mean, I was super grateful to be on the to get on the Maverick Center card last fight. That was amazing. But cancellations are no fun, man. They're no fun.
No, I can't even imagine. And so, I mean, I think what's so crazy about it is how similar this last one was to the one in March. Obviously, a little bit more of a window to know, so you didn't have to cut weight on the day of. But kind of what was that like? What was your reaction the second time around when you found out that George was not gonna be able to fight?
Like it, I feel like at this point for me, like maybe it is for most fighters, but that slight possibility of having your opponent pull out is there. And it was definitely there a little bit, but just to have because I mean, all things pointed to having the fight go down, especially with it being the week of. Um, I mean, just so unfortunate, so unfortunate. But I mean, we're patient, we're hanging in there, we take what's given, and yeah, we just keep taking the next win. So
I think one of the kind of silver linings amongst this is that there's certain guys who it's like they can't just jump back into camp and wait another couple of weeks. You are one who stays in shape year round. Is that something that has been helpful to you this year specifically, where you've had two fights that have had to be postponed a full month?
yeah, for sure. I think it's something super important, especially at this level, to be able to do is stay consistent. Like I said, at this level, just with how maybe unsteady things are with the promotions, just at amateur level, it's really important to just stay fresh and be ready to compete and show what we got. So, I mean, nothing's changing there. For me, this is the lifestyle I love the most, and I want to definitely uh, keep the rest of my life. I definitely can't imagine myself sitting in a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. So when people are like, "Ah, oh, that sucks. You got to stay in camp," I to a certain degree, I really don't mind it because I just love it. It's the passion for the game. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I think you're one of those guys who really flies off the page in my mind as one of the guys who are just so ingrained into this world and how much like I remember before your debut, I sat and chatted with you and you were like, I want this to be what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I was like, wow, like, you don't hear that going into the amateur debut necessarily, but you were one of the people that have been saying that from day one. And I've always thought that that was so interesting. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about April. We haven't really gotten a chance to talk, but your improvement from your first fight in May of 2022 to April 2023. I mean, there was vast improvement in that time that you were away. And I kind of just wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about some of your preparations and some of the things that you and Reese and Casey and everyone over there at Wasatch have been working on in terms of just upping your game and taking you to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. My debut fight was an interesting one, just navigating, all the new just a new space of competition. And so coming off of that fight, well, I'll back up a little bit. Like during camp was when Reese Hall showed up to the team. And so it was kind of his feeling out process because yeah, Jackson and I were on the same card, and he's like, all right, I'm just gonna see what these guys are doing. He was definitely coaching, but it wasn't so much of an investment as it is now for him. But still a great help. And so we came off of those fights, and we're super coachable. We're super coachable, and what even adds more to that is Reese and Casey being the best coaches we could ever ask for. Their wealth of knowledge is absolutely insane for this game. And so when I came off of the first fight, you know, it was a wild one. I was real hyper, in a sense, just throwing whatever came to my brain to throw. And so coming off of that fight, again, like I said, I love to be coachable and take and use what works. And that's the best thing Reese and Casey offer is they gave me everything that needed to enable me to to double and just multiply my skills going into the second fight. And that's what happened is I listened to them. I don't think I'm that stubborn of a student to this. And so I listened, and we just trained to what I needed to implement, and that's what I showed in the next one for sure. So I was real happy about that. But I mean, I owe it all to Reese and Casey and just being able to listen to them. So it was a real nice improvement or evidence of improvement.
I mean, it was all out there on the table. I mean, you looked almost and as good as you looked in the debut. I mean, you looked like a completely brand new fighter in there that second walk, and it was so impressive. We were like, "Is this the same Nate Reinhardt from 11 months ago?" I mean, you looked so impressive, and I kind of wanted to continue to talk a little bit about that. And you talked about kind of being in a new space and talking about new spaces, going from a high school in Orem, Utah, to the Maverick Center in Salt Lake City. And not only that, but you're standing opposite a kid in Dustin Larson, who was his head corner man was Chris Curtis, who's a UFC middleweight. I mean, did that like starstruck you a little bit? Was that like odd? Like, was it weird being in a big arena or anything like that? Or how did you kind of compartmentalize all of that going into the fight and still have an incredible performance?
No, I just soaked it all in. I take it for what it is, and it was the coolest thing to be in a big old arena. And when I saw that, because I initially saw when we were signing in, Chris Curtis is there, chatting with everyone. I was like, oh, Chris Curtis is here, dude. That's so cool. And I get to the locker rooms, and we're just getting ready. Right up to it, Reese is like, hey, did you see Chris is Dustin's cornerman? I was like, I thought he was just here to just chill and watch the fights. I didn't know he was gonna be cornering my opponents. I was like, all right, cool. This is cool, man. I mean, you know, let's throw me in. Let's see what happens. And so I just thought it was all cool. It was cool. I was super grateful, for the opportunity to jump off of that, being an 0-1 amateur at the time. But I do specifically remember seeing Chris multiple times during the rounds when I was in there, because I feel like at least for most of the time we were on the ground in his corner, and I do remember seeing Chris a lot and hearing Chris. So it was just interesting.
And I kind of wanted to ask you, did you talk to him at all after the fight or anything? Just shake his hand, or did you get the chance to hear anything from his side of the corner at all?
Chris, I didn't get the chance to talk to at all.
Mm-hmm.
I did talk to Dustin. He's awesome, super cool. Um, yeah, but I didn't get the chance to talk to Chris at all.
I think one of the big changes from fight one to fight two, and we're going to talk about fight three in just a few moments, but the big difference that we at least noticed was that I mean, you went from relatively a striking match to you dominated all of the wrestling exchanges, 78% control time throughout that second fight for the duration of it. Is that something like that you were talking about with Reese and Casey? Was that something that you really, really honed in on during that 11-month layoff from May of last year to April?
Yeah, absolutely. In the first fight, I think the reason why the judges gave it to Pedro at the time was just because of loss of control time. I think Pedro just had a little bit more grappling moments, um, that kind of gave it the edge on for that decision. And so, I mean, when Reese saw that, Reese being the crazy black belt that he is, he's like, all right, we got to change that. So
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, that was definitely definitely the main area of focus.
Well, you absolutely passed that test with flying colors. And I kind of wanted to talk to you about the entire team because it seems like you're all kind of on this incredible rise right now. I mean, what are your thoughts on this team and the heights that they are reaching? Because it seems like it kind of seems like all of you are kind of new onto the scene, but all of you are dominant and at the top of the rankings of every which division and kind of knocking on the door of title contention in each of these divisions.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's real hard to express to people how solid of a team we are. We're not many members. It's just a handful of us, but I mean, everyone is just so good, so skilled, talented, and like I said, so coachable. And so I think that's why we're making our runs. Is due to that. And with my small, I feel like of the group, I just have like the lowest record on paper, but it is the best mix to be in of Billy and Mina and Jackson, and pair that with Casey and Reese. It's a perfect mix for a team. And yeah, we just want to show the fruits, show the evidence, and take it one win at a time. But yeah, they're incredible teammates, great coaches. I mean, I don't know if we could ask for a better group and mix of people right now to improve and get better.
I kind of wanted to ask you, it seems like it's kind of a newer group, right? I mean, Reese hasn't been there for forever, right? He's only been there for a little bit over a year, I would say, at this point. I mean, Viliami's only been fighting a couple of years. Mina, the same thing. You and Jackson are newer on the scene as well. When did that fight team kind of come to be? And were you a part of that initial group that kind of decided that you were going to start taking fights?
No, I mean, it has been a real fast, you know, combination of certain things. When I showed up, I think it was October of 2021, and everything was still, everyone was still going. Um, I was definitely the newer guy at the time, but everything happened so fast to um, some changes of management at the gym, and then um, Casey and I really started to take the reins on head coaching and helped us out a ton. And that was when certain people like me, Billy, and Jackson, and Mina especially, we started to express our wants to fight competitively, fight for real, and then we just started training together. And then, like I said, Casey was giving us the best that he could, and we were just getting better from there. And then Reese shows up, and he was kind of the missing link in our team as far as grappling and jiu-jitsu, especially MMA style grappling goes. And yeah, happened real fast, and it's just been perfect fits all around.
All right, guys, before we keep going, we got to talk a little bit about our podcast sponsor, Water and Wellness. Now, you've heard us talk about Water and Wellness before, but I got to tell you, this is the best water I have ever had in my entire life. Alkaline, filtered, some of the tastiest stuff you'll ever have. I crave it like it's a cheat meal in itself, but it is so good for you. And they're stationed right here in Salt Lake City. So go ahead, head over to Water and Wellness for the best water you have ever had in your life. Change your water, change your life. Let's get back to the podcast. I am very curious. I mean, you and Jackson, two of the top bantamweights. Is there any opportunity that maybe you go up a weight class, he goes down, or some combination of that in order to avoid fighting each other? Kind of a Aljamain Sterling Merab Dvalishvili situation, right? I mean, two top bantamweights in the same gym who seem to be very close. I mean, how do you combat that, and have you discussed that at all?
Um, I mean, we definitely haven't discussed it only because I feel like our greater priority is just to stack wins, and more importantly, stack performances and show our skills. More importantly than rankings or contention or titles for sure, especially at this level. But yeah, I mean, Jackson's the same thing. Like for each other, we it's definitely the cliche saying of iron sharpens iron. Um, and it's been great. But like I said, I think the priority is stacking wins, stacking performances. Because if it comes to a situation where one of us has a title, the other's a contender, um, I don't think it's that big of a concern. Um, I think we floated a joke where like we would only fight each other if it was a big old payday, or you know, same Marab Aljamain situation where it's like you're almost fighting a mirror, you know. So
No, it certainly is something that is probably down the line still a little bit too, and so something not to worry about right now, considering the forecast of the team. One of the big things that this podcast is all about is also just kind of getting to know the fighter and how they came to be a fighter. Obviously, everyone has a story, and I'm curious. I've never asked you this. How did you get into training? What inspired you to want to start training, and what then subsequently made you go, "Oh, I want to compete and I actually want to fight"?
yeah, I feel like my path is maybe not unique, maybe a little odd. So I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, St. Augustine, more specifically. And growing up, I was the biggest golfer, man. I did obsessed with golf. I played middle school golf. I played high school golf. Uh, Tournaments everywhere. I was obsessed with it, man. I wanted to be a PGA Tour player. I wanted to be a professional golfer for the longest time. Um, and I also, at the same time, I either wanted to play on the PGA Tour or or I wanted to join the military. Though those were the two options, or at least in my head growing up. Those were my aspirations. And so around like 2017, I was probably 17, 16, 17 years old. Um, a good family friend of mine who was a huge wrestler. Um, his dad was a brown or black belt in BJJ at the time, and uh, I started to realize that maybe I wasn't going to be good enough to play on the PGA Tour, and and I kind of made the 180 turn of being like, okay, like golf's amazing. I still love it, still to this day. I freaking love it, dude. And I just kind of made the 180 turn of like, why don't I do something extreme? I want to do the most like rigorous, hardest training and sport possible. And I don't know why. It was just intriguing. And so I asked my friend's dad, because he liked MMA and all that too. I asked him to just train me in boxing, like just in his garage. I was like, I'll come over every night. Like, can you just train me in boxing? He was like, yeah, yeah. He's all over it. And at the time, he was like, well, let me train you in jujitsu and kickboxing and stuff too. And I was like, no, 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 no. I just want to do boxing. I don't want to do all the weird karate stuff. And so I just trained boxing for a long time, just boxing, all the way up until probably 2020. So like 3 or 4 years, I just boxed in his garage. I was at a boxing gym in Jacksonville, too, floating around there. Um, and then I served a 2 year mission for the church and then came back. I moved to Orlando, Florida, and there was an American Top team, the East Orlando. gym, not the HQ in Coconut Creek, but the smaller one in East Orlando. And I kept hearing a bunch of rave about jujitsu, and I was getting kind of intrigued with the UFC at the time. I was like, MMA is kind of a little more wide versed in combatives and stuff. So I was getting intrigued, and I just popped in there, bought a gi, and I was like, you're telling me I can hit people in the face while I do this? And they were like, yeah, I just train MMA, just train everything. I was like, boom, I'm sold. That's it. And then just got addicted, stuck with it, and yeah, then I moved up here, and because I only had a little bit of jujitsu when I came up here, just from American Top Team. Um, and when I first moved up here to Provo Orem area, I was like, man, I wonder what if there's even any MMA gyms here. I found Wasatch, came in, met Casey. I just stayed, and that was like end of 2021. So
That is absolutely insane. What a story. I do have to ask you, Reese, originally from Florida, have you guys ever talked about this and the fact that you guys never crossed paths or anything like that?
yeah, it was really weird because when he first showed up, he was there for a while, like a few months, and um, okay, maybe not a few months, but one day I was wearing like a Florida shirt. He's like, oh, you're wearing a Florida shirt. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Jacksonville. I'm from St. Augustine in Jacksonville. He's like, I'm from St. Augustine too. I was like, oh, no way. It was just weird. Like it's not a random city in Florida, but it was super random that we had both lived in St. Augustine.
That is absolutely incredible. Have you kept in contact with those people over in Florida? Do they know what you're doing now and that you're competing in amateur MMA and really rising the ranks and had a dominant performance earlier this year?
No, they have no idea. I didn't really establish too good of roots in the gym, only because American Top Team, they're probably top three franchise gyms in the world. And so their East Orlando gym was, kind of the same way. Like there were killers in there. The coaches were focused on the top fighters, and I don't want to say it was like cookie cutter training, but it just felt a little more franchise. And so I was just there to really learn jujitsu at the time, and I didn't even really tell people I boxed. Like I was, because they wanted jujitsu, dude. You might as well be nothing. Anything else you train doesn't really matter. So no, I just kept to myself, just learned a little bit. I was only there for maybe year and a half. But the head coach there, Jason Patino, who's a real top tier guy too. I mean, nah, he probably does. He has no idea.
Was it, you talked about American Top Team being obviously one of the top franchise gyms in the entire world. And was there any like, did it ever feel like you were just in this ocean full of absolute animals, just like absolute high level guys, and it just felt like you could never really get your footing, or was there anything like that throughout your time there?
Yes and no. I only say yes because the group of fighters there were really good, real talented. Of course they got most of the training only because they're the ones that have the momentum going. But at the same time, no, because the coaching staff there is incredible. Like American Top Team they know what they're doing. So like even for day ones, like you're getting great coaching and great work. So I mean, it's a good place.
Was there a fighter or a specific fight that like inspired you in any way, or was it really just those early on private boxing lessons with your friend or with your friend's dad, I should say?
I feel like a lot of people my age and maybe younger, it was the Connor era. When I first started training 2016, that was the Connor era. And so seeing Connor and everything that he was doing at the time, and it was just so impressive, and pretty jaw dropping. So I would credit to a lot of my hype for the sport to come from watching Connor back in the day. Um, but I mean, over that, it was just having it become my top, passion and thing I wanted to do, no matter where I was, at work, I just wanted to train. I just want to go to the gym and train. If I was at school, I just wanted to go to the gym and train. If I was at home, I just wanted to go to the gym and train. Like, so really became a passion, pair that with, watching Connor and, some of the top guys, have all those highlight reels and everything going on with the UFC. It's a good
Yeah.
mix.
Were you like that with golf as well? Just constantly wanting to train?
Oh, golf even more. If anyone's a golfer out there, that's probably the most addicting hobby in game.
Nate, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Of course, dude. No, thank you.